My mother's voice came through my phone at 2:04 a.m., nearly 4 years after I buried her. My name is Maren Elwood. I'm 29, and I work as a pediatric nurse at a small hospital in Cedar Harbor, North Carolina, just outside the quiet marshlands where the air always smells faintly of salt and pine. I live alone in the house where I grew up, the same white-shuttered home where I held my mother's hand as she took her last breath in a hospice bed we set up in the living room. I am not someone prone to superstition. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't read star charts or search for hidden meanings in dreams. I am careful, methodical, grounded. I lock the doors every night, check the windows twice, and keep a heavy flashlight beside my bed in case of emergencies. Not fear, just caution. So when I tell you what happened that night, I need you to understand this. I was awake. I was steady. And I was not imagining anything. Because at 2:04 a.m., I stood barefoot in my hallway, staring at my glowing phone screen while my dead mother's name flashed across it. Before I take you deeper into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Now, let me pull you into the moment everything changed. The call buzzed in my hand so violently I thought I might drop the phone. I hadn't seen that contact name in years. I couldn't bring myself to delete it, not even after I cleared out her closet or boxed up her sewing patterns. Mom. That was all it said. The plain, simple name I saved when I was 15, back when losing her felt impossible, a distant fear so far away it barely deserved a place in my mind. The call ended before I could react. Then, 5 seconds later, it started again. Same name. Same number. Same creeping dread curling up my spine. This time I answered. I don't remember hitting the button. I only remember the cold shock that shot through me when I raised the phone to my ear. At first, there was silence, warm silence, as if someone on the other end was breathing softly. Then a voice. Maren! A pause. Sweetheart, it's Mom. My knees nearly buckled. It wasn't just a voice that sounded like hers, it was hers. The faint rasp she developed in her final months. The gentle way she said my name, like she was smoothing out its edges. The warmth that wrapped around every syllable. I couldn't breathe. Sweetheart, she whispered again. I'm outside. It's freezing out here. Let me in, please. My thumb moved on instinct. I hung up so fast it felt like my hand wasn't even mine. The phone nearly slipped onto the floor. A cold tremor rippled through me as I backed against the hallway wall. I pressed my fingertips to my temples, trying to force logic into my head. This couldn't be real. Could it? Then I heard it. Knock. 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 Slow. Soft. Familiar. My mother never rang doorbells. She said they were too abrupt for civilized people. She always knocked 3 times, the same gentle rhythm, no matter how rushed she was. My breath stilled. Some part of me, some terrified, aching part, drew me forward despite every rational voice screaming at me to stop. The living room was dark, but moonlight spilled across the wood floors, guiding my steps to the entryway. I pressed my face to the peephole, and everything inside me froze. On the porch, illuminated by the weak glow of the neighbor's motion light, stood a woman with my mother's face. Same short auburn hair streaked with silver. Same narrow shoulders wrapped in the pale blue cardigan she wore almost every morning. Same soft, patient expression. It was impossible. It was horrifying. It was her, or something wearing her shape. My body jerked backward, hitting the wall again. My heart pounded, so loudly I felt it in my teeth. My hand scrambled for my phone, nearly dropping it twice before I dialed Aunt Seela, my mother's only sibling and the person who clung to me the tightest after Mom's death. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. Maren? Honey, what's wrong? Aunt Seela, I whispered, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. Someone's at my door. Someone who looks exactly like Mom. And she called me. From her number. Seela, she called me. Silence. Then, Maren, listen very carefully. Do not, under any circumstances, open that door. I'm calling the police. I'm on my way. Stay away from the entrance. She hung up before I could respond. I clutched the phone like a lifeline, backing away from the front door until my shoulders pressed into the opposite wall. My breath shuddered out in short, sharp bursts. Then I heard her voice again, but this time through the door. Sweetheart, I know you're scared. Her tone was gentle, coaxing. Ask me something. Ask me anything only I would know. A cold sweat slid down my spine. There were things she could know. Birth records, dates, the basics. If this was someone pretending, they might have her searched. But there were details buried so deeply inside me that no one alive should know them. My voice came out small. When I was 13, I said, choosing a memory so private I had never spoken it aloud. The night before my science fair presentation, what did I ask you in the kitchen? The thing I never told anyone else. Silence. Long enough to raise my hopes that she would fail. That this nightmare would unravel. Then the soft voice returned. You asked if people would like you more if you were quieter. You said maybe your personality was too big, and you should shrink so others wouldn't leave you the way your father did. And I told you that you were not meant to shrink for anyone. I told you were my brightest spark in the whole world. My legs went weak. That memory was locked so deeply inside me that even I barely remembered it. I had never written it down, never spoken it aloud, never shared it with anyone, not even my therapist later in life. Yet this woman knew it. Tears blurred my vision. My hand rose without permission, reaching for the lock. Don't open it, I thought. Don't be stupid. Don't you dare. But something deeper, something aching with longing and confusion, pushed my fingers toward the deadbolt. I unlocked the first latch, then the second. My breath hitched as I slid the chain free. My hand trembled violently as I turned the knob. I opened the door. She stood inches away, her breath fogging in the cold night air. Her eyes, brown, warm, impossibly familiar, met mine. Up close, she looked even more like my mother. The faint lines near her eyes, the tiny freckle on her chin, the way her shoulders curled inward when she was nervous or cold. Hi, sweetheart, she whispered. Her voice cracked with emotion. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. You're not real, I breathed. I watched my mother die. I held her hand. I buried her. The woman's face crumpled with a grief, so raw it nearly broke me. I know, she said. I know you did. But Marin. She paused. I'm not your mother. My stomach flipped. She stepped inside slowly, gently, as though she were entering a sacred space. She looked around the living room with soft eyes, brushing her fingertips across the faded quilt Mom made when I was 5. Then she turned back to me. My name is Mira Halston, she said quietly. Your mother's twin sister. My mind stuttered. My mother didn't have a twin. She didn't know about me either, Mira whispered. We were separated at birth. Different states. Different families. I found out 3 months ago. She reached into her cardigan and pulled out a folded paper. And by then, it was already too late. I stared at the paper in her trembling hand. But before I could take it, red and blue lights splashed across the windows. Police. A sharp knock rattled the doorframe, followed by my aunt's frantic voice calling my name. The hallway lights flashed red and blue as the police cruiser settled outside my house. I stepped aside, barely aware of my own movements, as Aunt Sela hurried past me. Her eyes landed on Mira standing quietly in the living room, and every bit of color drained from her face. She staggered backward, gripping the edge of the doorframe. Alina, she whispered, her voice cracking. No, I breathed, wiping at my tear-streaked cheeks. Her name is Mira. She says she's Mom's twin. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the distant hum of the police radio outside. Then one of the officers stepped in, a broad-shouldered man with a flashlight clipped to his belt, his expression shifting from caution to confusion as he took in the scene. Ma'am, we received a report about someone impersonating a deceased family member, he said carefully, eyes flicking from me to Mira. I'm not impersonating anyone, Mira said softly. I'm here because I found my family. I found her. She nodded toward me, her eyes glistening again. The officer frowned, uncertain, but he motioned for all of us to sit. What followed was nearly 2 hours of questions, explanations, and verification. Mira handed over the folded paper she tried to show me earlier, a DNA match report, crisp and official-looking, from a genealogy site. My mother's name, Alina Elwood, printed beside a 99.98% full sibling match. The officer examined it, flipping it back and forth as though expecting it to reveal something hidden. That's not possible, Aunt Sela whispered, her voice trembling. My sister never mentioned a twin. Not once. Myra's expression crumpled. She didn't know about me. Neither of us knew. We were both adopted. Separate families. I didn't find out until a few months ago. The officer asked more questions. Her address, her family history, how she found me, why she came here at 2 in the morning. Mira answered each one with a soft steadiness that made my stomach twist. She didn't seem dangerous. She didn't seem unstable. She seemed heartbroken. When the police finally concluded that no crime had been committed, they left us with polite but confused nods, telling us to call if we needed anything else. The front door clicked shut behind them. Silence followed. Aunt Selah sank onto the couch, her hands shaking violently. She stared at Mira the way someone might stare at a ghost. Terrified, fascinated, unable to look away. "My sister," she whispered. "I don't understand. How could something like this happen without anyone knowing?" Mira sat across from her, folding her hands in her lap. "I don't know all the details. Only that my adoptive mother told me the truth before she passed. She said I had another half of myself out there, someone who shared my beginning. I took a DNA test. The results led me here." My throat tightened as I listened. My emotions swung violently between fear, disbelief, and something else I couldn't quite name, something that felt dangerously close to yearning. Aunt Selah rubbed her forehead. God, Alina should have known. She should have known she had a sister. She should have, Mira whispered. I should have found her sooner. I would have if I had known. Every wall clock ticked louder in the quiet, filling the room with a heavy rhythm. I sank into the armchair across from both women, staring at Mira as though her face might change if I blinked. The resemblance to my mother was undeniable, too precise to dismiss as chance. The slope of her nose, the curve of her jaw, even the way she folded her hands looked hauntingly familiar. But resemblance wasn't proof. Emotion wasn't proof. Only facts mattered, and the truth felt too slippery to grasp. "Why did you call me?" I asked finally. "From her number?" Mira looked down, shame flickering across her face. "I asked the phone company to temporarily reactivate the number. I told them I was handling your mother's estate. They didn't question it." Her voice trembled. "I thought hearing her number might help you trust me. I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm so sorry. I never meant to frighten you." "Frighten me?" I echoed, letting out an incredulous laugh that cracked in the middle. "You made me think my mother walked out of her grave." Aunt Selah shot me a warning look, but Mira only swallowed hard and nodded. "You're right," she murmured. "I deserve that." I rubbed my palms against my knees, trying to ground myself. The room felt too small, the air too thin. "Why tonight?" I asked. "Why not wait? Why not call during the day like a normal person?" Mira hesitated. She looked older suddenly, tired, worn, fragile. "I've been coming by for weeks," she confessed quietly, trying to find the courage to knock. Every night, I would sit in my car down the street, watching the lights turn off one by one. Tonight, something in me broke. I felt like if I didn't do it now, I'd never do it. I didn't know what to say to that. My chest ached with conflicting emotions. Finally, after what felt like hours, Aunt Selah stood. "Well," she said, wiping her eyes, "we can't figure all of this out right now. It's nearly 5 in the morning." She turned to Mira. "You should come by tomorrow, when we've all slept. We need time to process this." Mira nodded. "Of course. I understand. Thank you for listening." She walked slowly to the door, pausing for a moment as if unsure whether she should say something more. Her eyes met mine. "You look so much like her," she whispered. "Your mother." It's like looking into the past. Something broke loose in my chest, an aching shard of grief and longing. I didn't trust my voice enough to reply. I only nodded. Mira slipped out into the cool dawn air and disappeared down the walkway. When the door closed behind her, I sank to the floor, every muscle trembling. Aunt Selah knelt beside me, pulling me into her arms like she used to when I was young. "We'll figure this out," she murmured. "Whatever this is." I clung to her, feeling small and untethered. Because deep down, despite all logic, despite every instinct screaming caution, a part of me wanted Mira to be real. I wanted my mother to have had someone. I wanted our family to be bigger than loss. I didn't sleep after Selah left. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling as the sky brightened to pale gold. Every minute felt heavy with uncertainty. When morning finally came, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the mug like it might give me answers. Questions swirled endlessly in my head. Why had no one known about a twin? Why did my grandmother hide it? How many lies lived in the spaces of our family history? By the time evening rolled around, my nerves felt like frayed wire. At exactly 7 o'clock, a soft knock sounded at the door. I froze. Then, slowly, I made my way to the entrance and opened it. Mira stood on the porch, not in a cardigan this time, but in a simple navy coat. Her eyes were nervous but hopeful. "Hi," she said. I swallowed. "Hi. May I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. She entered with careful movements, looking around as if absorbing every detail of the home she'd never walked through before yet somehow felt connected to. "I brought something," she said, holding out a small, worn envelope. "I think you should see this." I took it hesitantly. Inside was a photograph. 2 newborn babies, swaddled in matching pink blankets, lying side by side in a hospital bassinet. A handwritten note on the back read, "Marin and Mira, together always." My breath hitched. I recognized the handwriting. My grandmother's. Before I could speak, Mira said softly, "I think your mother never knew this photo existed. Maybe your grandmother wanted to forget the pain of losing one child and keeping the other. I don't know, but I think she meant to keep you together once." I sat heavily on the couch, clutching the photo, my mind spinning. "What about your life?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Where have you been all this time?" Mira pulled out a second envelope. "My story isn't a short one," she murmured, "but I want to tell it to you. Every part one know." She sat across from me and began. Mira took a deep breath, as if she needed to gather all the scattered pieces of her past before laying them out in front of me. "I grew up in a small town near Rutland, Vermont," she began. "My adoptive parents, Hannah and Louis, were good, kind people. They told me I was adopted, but they never said anything about a sister. Not once. I don't think they knew. Or if they did, they were never told where you were. My mother always said I was meant for them, that fate put me in their arms. And for a long time, that was enough." She gave a soft, sad smile. "But I always felt incomplete, like I was missing someone I didn't know. I'd wake up from dreams where I could hear a baby laughing, my laugh, but not my voice. Or I'd see 2 girls running hand in hand across a field. Sometimes I would talk to my reflection as if it were someone else, a sister I imagined. I thought I was strange. I kept those feelings hidden for decades." Her eyes fell to her hands. "When my adoptive mother got sick, she called me to her bedside. She told me she needed to confess something before it was too late. She said I had a sibling at birth, a twin, but her memory, it was fading. She didn't know the name. She didn't know where my twin ended up. All she had were fragments. But that was enough for me to start searching. I felt my pulse quicken. The idea of my mother having lived her whole life unaware of her twin made something inside me twist painfully. "She passed away a week after telling me," Mira whispered. I took a DNA test out of desperation. It sat in my kitchen for a month because I wasn't sure I wanted the truth, but eventually I sent it in. She paused, her eyes shining, and then I saw her name, your mother's name, Alina Elwood, a full sibling match. I cried for hours. I thought I finally found the missing piece of myself. But when I searched for her, I realized I was 3 years too late. Her voice broke on the last word. The grief rolled off her in quiet waves, and something inside me cracked wide open. Because I had cried like that too, on the day I buried my mother, feeling like my soul had been ripped out and replaced with an echo. "I wanted to meet you," she said. "Not to take her place, not to intrude, just to know her through you. To know the family I never got to have." The photograph trembled slightly in my hand. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. "Why did you come at night?" I asked again, softer this time. "Because I've lived my whole life being careful," Mira said. "Afraid to disrupt anything. Afraid to be unwanted. But that night, I couldn't stand the thought of another day passing without trying." My throat tightened. I understood that feeling more than I wanted to admit. We spent hours talking after that. Mira told me about her life, her work teaching art at a local elementary school for nearly 30 years, her husband Jonah, who died unexpectedly of an aneurysm, her gentle garden full of lavender and mint she kept because the scent made her feel safe. She showed me photos on her phone, snapshots of laughter lines around Jonah's eyes, birthday parties with her students, 2 rescue cats curled together on a patchwork quilt. When she spoke about the things she loved, I saw flickers of my mother, small gestures, soft smiles, shared quirks woven across a lifetime neither of them knew belonged to someone else too. "You have her eyes," I told her quietly. Mira blinked, surprised. "Really?" "Exactly the same," I said. "Warm, deep, watching everything." She smiled, and for a moment, the room felt gentler. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with both of us. It had been a long night, longer than any I could remember. We agreed to meet again the next day, and as she left, she squeezed my hand gently. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving me a chance." When the door closed behind her, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The house felt different now, not haunted, not empty, but full of a strange and heavy possibility. That night, I dreamed of my mother for the first time in months. She stood in our old kitchen, stirring soup in the dented pot she refused to replace. She turned, smiled at me, and said, "You're not alone, sweetheart. You never were." When I woke up, my pillow was damp with tears. In the weeks that followed, Mira became a steady presence in my life. At first, it was cautious. Coffee on my porch, long walks around the neighborhood, hesitant questions that built bridges between us piece by piece. But slowly a rhythm grew. She'd show up with fresh herbs from her garden. I'd bring out old photo albums for her to see. We'd spend hours comparing childhood stories, laughing at how similar we had been without ever knowing it. Once, she told me how she used to hum when she was nervous, an unconscious habit. My mother used to do the same. Another time, she mentioned she adored the smell of old books. So did Mom. Each shared detail felt like stitching 2 halves of a torn fabric back together. And then the anniversary of my mother's death arrived. I dreaded that day every year. The quiet heaviness, the ache that clung to the corners of the house, the way every sound felt muffled. But this year I wasn't alone. I asked Mira to come with me to the cemetery. We arrived just after sunrise, the grass damp with dew. I knelt beside my mother's headstone, tracing the letters of her name. Mira stood beside me, clutching a small bouquet of lavender, my mother's favorite scent. "She was beautiful," Mira whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "I wish I'd known her." "You would have loved her," I said. "She would have loved you too." Mira gently placed the lavender against the headstone. Her voice quivered when she spoke next. "I promise," she murmured, "I'll take care of your daughter. I'll be here for her. For both of us." My chest tightened. I leaned forward, pressing my forehead to the cool stone. "Clouds and back, Mom," I whispered. Mira paused. "Clouds and back. It was our thing," I said, wiping my eyes. "A saying we made up." She nodded, her own expression softening. "Maybe you can share it with me too someday." I managed a small smile. "Maybe." We stayed for nearly an hour, talking to my mother the way we might have talked to her if she were sitting beside us. The breeze carried our words away, as if delivering them somewhere the living couldn't follow. When we finally stood, Mira pulled me into a tight hug. Her arms were warm, steady, familiar in a way that hurt and healed at once. Driving home, I realized something had shifted inside me. Pain didn't feel as sharp. Loss didn't feel as hollow. Grief, once a constant storm, now softened around the edges like gentle rain. Love doesn't die when a person does. It echoes. It finds new forms. Sometimes it shows up at your door, wearing the face of someone you thought you lost forever. Months passed. Mira and I built something new, something fragile and beautiful. She visited me every week. Sometimes we cooked dinner together. Sometimes we sorted through my mother's belongings. She cried when she saw Mom's old sewing machine. I cried when she showed me a painting she made of my mother based entirely on my descriptions. We were mending each other in ways neither of us expected. One afternoon, as we sat on my porch drinking tea, Mira looked at me with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "I think your mother spent her whole life missing something without knowing what it was. And I spent mine searching for something I couldn't name. Maybe we were all waiting for this." "For us?" I asked. She nodded. For each other. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. That night, before she drove home, I hugged her tightly. To the clouds and back, I whispered. Her breath hitched. To the clouds and back, sweetheart. And I knew then that my family wasn't gone. Just shifted, expanded, found again in the quiet spaces between loss and discovery. My mother didn't return from the dead that night. But love did. Love walked up my porch, knocked 3 times, and waited patiently until I was brave enough to open the door. If this story touched your heart, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment telling me about a moment someone unexpected came into your life. I read every single one, and your stories mean the world to me. Sometimes the people we need most find us exactly when we think we're most alone. We just have to be willing to let them in.